Hey, it's Carl with a K. Let's talk about Hollywood. Welcome to the show. This is Carl Gibson, and this is Let's Talk About Hollywood. Before I get started with this week's podcast, it is May 29th, 2026, Friday, and I'd like to send out my support and thoughts and big hugs to those of you in the United Kingdom and Western Europe dealing right now with the record-breaking heat waves. I see it on the news, it's all over the internet, and I, again, am offering my support to you. Please stay cool, please stay hydrated, please especially check on the elderly, because a lot of times, depending on whether they have air conditioning or not, which I understand with the infrastructure is not always a thing or a feature in your home. For those who are older, please check on them, especially those who are trying to save money. Perhaps if they do have some kind of cooling system, a lot of times people can get overtaxed by the heat and fall asleep and have potential health events. So just check on them and take care of yourself and your pets. I know that it's incredibly uncomfortable and it's incredibly scary here in the United States. You know, depending on where I've lived in Chicago, Florida, Los Angeles, I know what it's like to be in 125 degree heat or hotter. And so I just want to acknowledge that, and please be safe and know that I am thinking about you and this community cares. So I wanted to acknowledge that first and foremost. And I know that it's scary and I know that it's dangerous. You know, I've been through earthquakes when the air goes out. I've been through Hurricane Helene here in Florida, and the air conditioning goes out or the power goes out, and it's incredibly stifling heat. There's mosquitoes, there's all kinds of things happening, you know, with your food, everything. It's just so many things to think about. And I'm not, of course, making this about me. I'm just simply saying that I've been through some of this before, and I understand when infrastructure is not set up to be able to handle this, you know, especially when it's this incredibly hot and out of season and coming out of nowhere. So again, we are thinking of you and sending love, and please be safe. And I also want to send out a thank you to this international community of listeners and those of you who are downloading this podcast. I want to say hello and thank you sincerely to the United States, Spain, Thailand, Germany, Canada, Italy, Brazil, France, China, Kenya, India, the United Kingdom, Togo, South Africa, La Réunion, and everyone else who's listening in other territories privately who have found this podcast. I see you too. Be safe as well. And thank you for being here. This week's episode, since you're here, is about the journals. We're going back to 2002, and that's what this podcast is about. Each season covers a year, so we're in 2002. Here in season 2, we're already up to September. And what's happening in this particular episode is I am at the Hollywood Reporter. I've accepted a promotion as an assistant to the editor and office manager of the main newsroom for the Hollywood Reporter. And within 3 days, I am going to have a birthday celebration, a housewarming with my then husband, Bebbles Stone, and my late husband, Bebbles Stone. And then the Emmys are the third day. So Friday through Sunday, it's 72 hours of a lot of things happening. And this journal is about how all that went down. Okay, so it's not earth-shattering. You might be entertained, but it's real life. And so let's start the episode. And this episode is called One Big Tuxedo-Clad Orgasmatron. Sunday, September 22nd, 2002. I'm here in the newsroom. One of the reporters here privately called the Emmys One Big Tuxedo-Clad Orgasmatron. When I first got here in the newsroom, there was a temp covering the copy desk. My boss had insisted that there be no temp today, and HR had confirmed as much. I came in early and found that the temp had done all of the weekend work, faxes, box office reports, phones. She was very nice and a college-aged looking young black woman. I sent her home a half hour early with full pay. I didn't want her to run into my boss and for anyone to blow a gasket when it's already high stress with the Emmy show. The deputy editor also signed off on her timesheet, so it all worked out. The temp did a great job, and I can take over for Emmy duties and the piles of files that are on my desk. Last week, the Hollywood Reporter newsroom threw me a surprise birthday party. My work partner, the editorial assistant and calendar editor, had already given me a gift bag of goodies and some executive pens and chocolates. The newsroom stopped working and presented me with a cake that said, "Happy birthday, Carl," along with a card with the nicest inscriptions, including one who said, "To the most important person in the newsroom." I thanked everyone for their kind words and sentiment. My boss came out for it, this impromptu party. I was very touched. People hugged me whom I haven't spoken to in weeks. After work, I met Stone at the bus stop, and later we went to Skybar with two of his co-workers, Rosanna and Camila, who were an hour late. They liked Skybar. They both said, "It's beautiful." And Rosanna decided on the spot that she wants to get married there. This is the Skybar at the Mondrian Hotel on the Sunset Strip. Later on in the evening, Camila said, "It's official. Me and Rosanna are the fattest women here." They were clearly a little depressed, and Stone said, "That is not true. There are bigger women here." "Show me," Camila said. "I defy you to show me one woman bigger than we are." She was serious, and we couldn't. They still had fun, though. I was tired, but enjoyed relaxing for a minute. We stayed for a couple of hours. Saturday morning, I got up and got ready for our housewarming that night. I made over 24 butterscotch muffins. The key is to put packs of instant pudding in the cake mix and then top the crowns of the muffins with pecans and brown sugar. Yum-licious. I was proud of myself, and everybody liked them. The housewarming went well. Bebbles made homemade macaroni and cheese, barbecued ribs. There was liquor. The first guest was my first friend in LA, Armand, who breathlessly told me that he'd just made an unannounced visit to his ex-boyfriend, Sam, before coming over. He was thrilled that it was a success. Armand said, "I was dressed, baby, and looking good. Sam was on his porch, tore up, and looking horrible." It wasn't really a successful visit, though, since Sam told Armand that he doesn't want him to drop by ever again, and that Armand's things that are still in his home will be dropped off at a mutual friend's house. Armand seemed to feel that he had won the face-off because he was dressed for our housewarming and had made Sam feel wistful. It's a shame they broke up. It's been a bitter one between them. Sam really does have some of Armand's things, but Armand only went over there to make him pant. When Stone came in, Armand told the story again, word for word. Just then, one of Stone's guests came, a Hispanic guy named Andres. He came in the place of another coworker of Stone's who couldn't come. Andres had on a big plaid shirt, tank tops, jeans, and a bald fade. He had the roughneck look down pat. He was slightly stocky, but tall, and pretty ordinary-faced. He talked with Stone while I took Armand in our bedroom and did some last-minute party prep. Stone said he'd entertain Andres. Stone came in shortly thereafter and told me that Nigel had arrived. I got to the door downstairs to let Nigel in, and there's a late 40-ish Latina woman, Renata, with 2 children, both boys, about 8 and 11 years old, respectively, and one of them was miserable with an obvious cold. She was an invited guest, but she never said she was bringing her kids. That sucked. It's not like I had children's games. It's an adult housewarming for adults by adults. Bebbles apologized to me in a quick, private kitchen moment. He went out and talked to Renata and Andres while the kids played cards on the love seat. Nigel and Armand, who don't always get along, tried to get along better, and I tended to them on their drinks. I checked on Andres and Renata, and they were fine. One of Renata's boys, the 8-year-old, must have sneezed 7 or 8 times at once, and I sent Stone out with tissues for him while Renata yelled, "Honey, when you sneeze like that, cover your mouth." The boy soon got restless and wanted to play around all of the glass displays, which Bebbles stopped before it started, but not in a harsh or rude way. I sat down next to the 2 boys, who looked like Harry Potter with their glasses and their bangs, and asked were they okay. "No, I'm bored," the oldest said, looking at me and then his hands like an accountant. "I know, right?" I said. "It's really tough when you're bored at someone else's house and you weren't even invited, isn't it?" I said it straight-faced. The boys looked at me and a sly grin crept over their face, and they got the joke, and I won them over just like that, and they had a good time for the rest of their mom's visit. I sat on the floor and talked to Nigel and Armand in my bedroom when another co-worker of Walter's, Chantay, came in with her 2 kids and her 2 adult friends, so 5 altogether. I thought that was off the hook, but she had brought a big pot of greens that she'd cooked herself, and her party pretty much stayed with her. They took up the entire couch just by themselves. Armand, Nigel, and I went out to the balcony just after Renata announced that she was leaving with her 2 kids since the younger one was getting worse with cold. I apologized to the 2 boys for it being boring and said, "I know adult parties suck," and rolled my eyes for effect, and they giggled and said goodbye. Chantay was great, I must say, with her party of 5. Her kids were cool, and her little infant only cried when the music stopped, and that was all but never. Not that we'd have minded. We all held the baby, Jericho, and he was particularly fond of Bebbles. He just held on to Bebbles and looked like a little bitty thing up against his huge chest. Stone loved him so. Chantay's friends were nice, and she just enjoyed herself sitting there. I went to refresh the room's drinks, and Bebbles Stone came to me in the kitchen and said, "Andres said he's leaving. He says he feels uncomfortable." I said, "So? Let him go then. Bye. Don't make him stay." At this point, I'm like, fuck you. If you're uncomfortable in my place, then go home, by all means. Whenever I was away in the kitchen or tending to party preparations, Armand and Nigel would talk, but they never let Andres join in any reindeer games. We'd introduced them all to each other, but Armand and Nigel said that Andres was just staring at them, not speaking. He could have said hi to them, but it turns out that Andres didn't feel comfortable because of me. I guess because I wasn't tending to him while he was joined at the hip with Stone, he felt that I had an attitude or was keeping my distance from him or some shit. Stone told me privately that Andres recently came out as gay and has a 9-year-old daughter, and maybe the gay friendliness was scary to him or something. It's not like I took courses in gay hosting or something. In my opinion, your sexuality is not 99% of who you are. Rules of attraction or the person you choose to be intimate with are important, but it's not political to me. I didn't throw a housewarming/support group for newly out gays, okay? I thought that was all so ridiculous. I was glad he left with his stern face. I'd offered him drinks, snacks, and he still didn't feel comfortable. Stone didn't trip on it, and I'm glad he didn't. Stone thought maybe by inviting this gay guy that would help him feel a part of things, and I'm thinking, this guy didn't do anything but stare at the other guests, and I was hardly around. I was not seething against Andres while he spoke to Bebbles the whole entire time. Frail ass. Wait until he takes his newly gay self out to the nightclubs. He's really going to feel uncomfortable then. I don't have time for remedial classes. The rest of the housewarming went great. Rosanna and Camila came. Salvador and Faith came. They of the bedroom tour by Bebbles last week. Salvador and Faith, they were actually very nice. Another one of Stone's co-workers came, Willona, and she was Mary J. Blige fabulous and had fun. Stone's friend, Victor, the one that got bossy with Nigel once a few weeks ago, came with his younger boyfriend. Nigel and Armand were the last to leave, but not before Armand gave his phone number to Victor's boyfriend. Stone and Nigel's eyes went wide with that, but it was hard for me to tell why, especially after Victor gave his number to Nigel. I didn't get involved. I couldn't figure it out. We got some nice gifts. We opened them in front of everyone to acknowledge their kindness and thanked everyone for coming. Renata gave us a huge box of Rubbermaid containers, which are always needed. Armand gave us a collection of huge scented candles that smelled great. Nigel gave us 2 pie pans, a casserole pan, and a bottle of wine. Chantay gave us the new pot she had made the greens in, and her friends gave us bottles of champagne and mimosas. Rosanna and Camilla gave us molded ice trays, a crock pot, pot holders, dish towels, and dishcloths. Faith and Salvador gave us a toaster, a rice cooker, and a mixer. Wow. Willona gave us some chronic weed and a bottle of wine. Everyone ate until they were sweating. At one point, there was no one talking in the entire house because the food was so good. It was a nice gathering, and I really liked Faith and Salvador. Salvador is really very nice, and I can see why Stone thinks he's cool, because he really is. The party was all over by 10:30 at night, and Stone and I just sat in the living room, happy that everyone had enjoyed themselves. We were really surprised by the generosity of the gifts. We hadn't really asked for any, so it was neat. It was my first housewarming, and I was so relieved that I fell asleep on the couch, too tired to move. Stone just put me to sleep in the bedroom, and when I woke up later, he was on the couch, nodded out. I put us both to bed, and we slept well. Today was the Emmys. They've ended now, and no one is excited about it. The newsroom is angry that 6 Feet Under got shut out, and one person griped about our cover photo for another show that always wins. I heard that Jennifer Aniston won. Michael Chiklis won for The Shield. I remember when he played John Belushi in the film adaptation of Wired, and Hollywood all but wrote him off. But he stuck with it and totally changed his image from his previous TV series, The Commish, and is playing against type in The Shield. Bob, our publisher, talked to Michael Chiklis tonight and came into the newsroom saying that Chiklis is actually a sweet guy, no bullshit or fakery. There was a lull during the show, and one of our team leaders cursed at one of the production people. She was just joking with the lead, who asked her if she was busy. She walked over to him and answered, "I've got a lot of stuff here to do." "Just kidding. Are you busy?" He turned on her and growled, "I'm seriously in no mood to be fucked with." She said, "And I'm in no mood to be talked to like that." He cut her off and said, "I asked you a question. We're working here. One of the reporters needs to talk to someone, and I'm going to pass him to you." I watched her walk away red-faced, and she mouthed to me, "What did I do?" I gave her a look that I understood, and I felt sorry for her. I would never last a week working for her boss. He has a way of breaking momentary morale to pieces. My promotion is still sinking in. I'm glad I'm going to be making more money as of today. I know I can do the work that is ahead of me. I think I can do a lot for the common good with my own sense of calm, my work logic, and ethic. I'm in the newsroom now, and the editorial brass are running around trying to work out technical glitches. I have to stay on standby in case any of the reporters need to dictate their stories from their different posts. The copy desk is proofing tomorrow's coverage. Tomorrow after work, I have a press screening of Reese Witherspoon's new movie, Sweet Home Alabama, at 7:30 on the West Side, so I won't be home tomorrow until 11 p.m. at least. Stone has a doctor's appointment in the morning. I'm nervous, but not too much. It started last week when Stone's feet were so swollen, I got startled. It looked like he'd been bitten by something poisonous, and I said so, loudly. Stone said it was his square-toed dress shoes, but I wasn't satisfied with that answer. He has health insurance, and he can take time from work to see the doctor. They'll pay him for it. They made an appointment for him for September 28th, 6 days from now, but I suggested to Bebbles it was more important to see the doctor sooner. They're close by, and I see the same doctor. They've always been good for me. Of course, our biggest private fears are diabetes when it comes to Stone, since he went into a diabetic coma during our first year together. I also worry about his blood pressure, but I didn't rant about it. I told Stone to tell the doctor that he has support at home and that I can help with any dietary changes. The irony is that Stone eats healthier than I do for the most part. He's strong. He can deal with the doctor. I just don't want either of us to be caught off guard. We don't want any surprises, but we also want to know how he's doing and what we can do if there's any issues. God forbid, if it's anything serious, then at least we have been through worse, and we can get through it together. It's nothing to be alarmed about. It's 11:30 p.m. My Emmy duties are over. All right, everybody, that's the episode as far as the journals. Now it's time for the recap. So, yeah, that was my first housewarming. It was my first housewarming, really, as a couple. I'd had a housewarming before as a single person. This was my first housewarming with my partner. And, yeah, remember, I thought this was going to be mostly adult party, and then it wasn't, which was fine. With the two kids that were there, who came very early, the two that look kind of like the little Harry Potters, who are now in their early 30s. I ended up actually getting a cat, my cat Papers, who I had for years and years. He was so cute and so adorable. So I had more dealings with those little kids. They were great. And their mom, Anita, of course, with their family. And I know it seemed kind of mean to say, hey, I know you're bored, because I'd be bored too if I wasn't invited. But they thought it was funny. And it was just kind of a way to kind of acknowledge, like, hey, it's not my fault. You're bored. Like, I didn't invite you. I'd be bored too. But they got it, and they thought it was funny. So yeah, I wasn't being mean to the little kids. They definitely understood. Sometimes kids just need a little levity, and it wasn't like it was mean. But I always thought that was funny. Like, I'm bored. Like, yeah, I'd be too. I just felt so bad for them because, like I said, one of them so obviously had a cold, but their mom wanted to come and she brought them, and it was no problem. As for Andres, yeah, I have to say I was a little hard on him as far as privately with Bebbles, but that was really just because I thought, I'm already under a lot of pressure, and I'm giving you food. I'm trying to make sure you've got your drinks. You've been, he was talking to Bebbles the whole entire time. And so I just kind of felt like, how are you leaving this party because of me? Like, somehow I'm making you uncomfortable. It was more pressure than I needed, quite frankly. And, if it were today, I would say, you know what? How about you invite Andres over and, we can just hang out and get to know each other. But, that didn't happen. So yeah, I'll never really know what that was all about. It's like, I know that you're, recently out as a gay man and this, that, and the other. But like I said, I felt like I didn't, have a manual on how to host parties, just hang. And if he felt uncomfortable about me, I guess maybe it was, I don't know. I think with a lot of people, Bebbles was so welcoming and extroverted and charming. And I'm extroverted, especially when I know you. But I think just, I didn't have that instantaneous warmth, maybe, because it's not like I was looking at him weird, like, why are you talking to my man or anything like that. I just thought, dude, if you're not comfortable, then you got to go, because I got a whole party to deal with here. So yeah, I don't know what ended up happening with Andres. I hope he's happy now. This is many, many years later, so I'm sure that he is. And his daughter would be in her 30s today. So yeah. And as far as what I was saying about, sexuality is politics, of course, this was in my journal. This was based on a house party, of course. There are a lot of political aspects about sexuality, but in this case, I was just kind of like, it's a house party, just hang. My friend Armand, who was there, he was the one who told the story twice about his ex-boyfriend, which, that's one of those things where, he thought it was a success. Like, I showed him, and Sam, Armand's ex-boyfriend, was like, actually, it didn't work. It's an epic fail. Don't come over here again. And your things will be at one of our mutual friends' houses. And that wasn't so good. And, I really liked Sam. If you have a friend who's broken up with someone that you really liked, like I liked Sam. He was very humble. He was very insecure about his front teeth. He didn't need to be, but he kind of always would talk like with his lips over his teeth and with his hand partially in front of his mouth. But he was really humble, but he was no match for Armand's brand of pizzazz and pseudo narcissism. Because Armand was one of my first friends in LA, but he could be a friend of me. He could be a little messy. So I always remember being sad that he had broken up with Sam. And to this day, I think if he had stayed with Sam, his life would have taken a completely different turn. And that's a fact. So that I've always felt for Sam. Don't know where he is, but hope he's doing well. He was sweet. I really liked him. And the housewarming went really well. It was bittersweet, of course, to read about it again, because I remember so many of those gifts we used, but then a lot of them I ended up donating after Bebbles passed away, because it just was like, how am I going to use all of these things? Again, it was just like, these are gifts for a dream that doesn't exist anymore. And it was really, really hard. But I'm saying it was really, really hard to be able to look at all of these things, in the closet, and all of these great gifts that we got, especially, a lot of the cookware and that kind of thing. And just say, I need to donate this to a family or to a home. Because even though I had a home, it was just me. After Bubbles passed away, less than 3 years from this housewarming. So I did really appreciate that we got to do that. I know it meant a lot to him. It was a lot of his guests that came. And I do remember, ironically, that Renata and Camilla, who were his friends, I remember we were giving like leftovers to everyone who was leaving. Well, giving them to-go plates of ribs and macaroni and cheese and these butterscotch muffins and all this. And for some reason, like the next day at work, or a couple of days later at work, Renata and Camila were like, yeah, it was a nice housewarming party, but they ran out of food. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And they did not come over to the house after that, because I was like, you know what? That's just ridiculous. It's not like it was in the tabloids or something. I just thought, what is that all about? Like, we did not run out of food. That's a stupid thing to say. And so you don't need to hang with us anymore. So that was the end of them. But otherwise, I just remember that being a really rushed 3 days, because like I said, it was my birthday, and then it was the housewarming, and then it was the Emmys. And so, like I said, the Emmys were always stressful. It was always great to get them done with. And like the writer said, you know, it's one big Tuxedo-Clad Orgasmatron, because it kind of was. It was just kind of like this flurry of executives and celebrities and shows and the town and all this, you know, what it takes to do the Emmys every single year. And I would be involved with 7 more of them. Well, 6 more at least, because I was at the Hollywood Reporter till 2008. So yeah, I didn't say too much about the Emmys, but it was just always a lot going behind the scenes. But there will be other award shows that I'll tell you about. There's tons more to come. And that will do it for this week's episode. And thank you again for listening. This podcast runs on donations, as you know. So listener donations are what supports this podcast. It'll always be free. If you'd like to contribute to the podcast in any way, you can do so on my site, which is www.letstalkabouthollywood.com/support. Or you can click the link in the show notes wherever you're getting this podcast. It's there if you'd like to donate. And I'd appreciate it. And if you donate, I'll thank you on the air. If you don't want to be thanked, you can let me know. And if you can't donate, come back. Just come back and share the podcast. And I'm glad to have you here. If you want to reach out to me, if you have any thoughts, if there's anything you want to say, or any feedback that you'd like to give, you can send it to Studio Exec Carl. That's Studio EXECKARL @gmail.com. And I'm glad to hear from you. All right, everyone. I appreciate you. And I will be with you again in the next episode. There's way more to come. Have a safe rest of your weekend. And also to our listeners in Kenya, our thoughts are with you. Of course, you know, there are no confirmed Ebola cases in Kenya. There is a high court hearing on June 2nd as far as a proposed isolation center. Just wanted our listeners there to know that we're thinking of you. And, you know, there are reputable sources online to keep track of the heat waves, not only affecting, and the weather systems affecting not only the U.S., but the U.K., Western Europe, as well as what's happening as far as the Ebola outbreak, which again, as far as Kenya is concerned, just because it's been in the news, there are no confirmed cases as of today. And this is Saturday, May 30th, that I'm doing this recap. And, you know, the closest outbreak is 1,500 miles away from Kenya. So, you know, just staying abreast of it. You know, I am sending my thoughts, of course, and this community cares. And so for all of us dealing with everything in the world, stay safe, take care of each other. You know, this is a podcast that is downloaded and listened to in over 30 countries. So we are a global community, and I know here in the States and just in the world, we're dealing with so much, and you're not by yourself, and there's definitely vibes coming your way. So good ones. Thanks for being here this week for this episode. And as always, don't forget, love is real, and I wish you all great things. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.